welcome to All About Jack, a podcast feature of EssentialCSLewis.com. I'm William O'Flaherty. What follows is 7 minutes of a 33-minute interview with Dr. Sørina Higgins on the Rings of Power TV show. It is spoiler-free, meaning even if you haven't seen any episode, then you are safe. So what follows is essentially background information that can help you decide if you want to see the series. Before we talk about the Rings of Power itself, let's address what the show covers, and likewise what it does not cover. That is, what text were the writers allowed to use, and why is that important to understand?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and it's an important principle to lay down before we get into the details. The showrunners have the rights to The Lord of the Rings, including its appendices, and The Hobbit, and that is pretty much it. So they are covering the second age of Tolkien's history of Middle-earth. So for those who might not be familiar with that, the third age is what we mostly know because that's when The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings take place. So this is some thousands of years before that. But Tolkien did not write a huge amount about the second age. He did write some about it in the Silmarillion, but they do not have the rights to that or to the unfinished tales. So they're working with a limited set of texts.
Exactly right. Now, most people, if they've listened to me, know that this is not my area of expertise. I don't come from a literature background, but I did read enough. Actually, not before watching the first 2 episodes, which is, of course, what we're discussing. So people listening to this in the future or after the first season will understand if we don't make some obvious points that become obvious once you've seen those other shows. But anyway, that it doesn't go into the other material that is out there. And so people familiar with it, which actually is not myself, but yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Now, let's not go into too much detail about these first 2 episodes, but what is your initial reaction to those first 2 episodes? Is it covering the period of Middle-earth you were expecting, or how is it doing so far? Because again, it's only 2 episodes of the 8 from the first season that we are talking about.
Right. It is covering the period that I expected. There is a prologue that gives a very quick overview of Tolkien's first age, which is about what I expected them to do, and then it jumps right into the events of the second age.
Okay. Well, now, highlight what you liked about the episodes as a TV show in general, and then as a Tolkien adaptation. I think it is important to distinguish that because that's why maybe people either love it or hate it. I've seen that there's really no middle ground to the majority of the reactions.
That's exactly right. And it is important to make that distinction. And that also is a distinction of audience, right? Are they making this show for the real Tolkien fans who know the lore and speak Elvish and have an encyclopedic knowledge? Or are they making it for the casual viewer? So I think it is important to try to evaluate it from both of those. So just as a TV show, I most enjoyed the visuals. It is an absolutely beautiful show. The sets, the scenery, the costuming, the cast themselves. It's just a visual feast. It's a very great pleasure to watch it. And they have both huge landscape shots that soar over the land that are beautiful, and then really careful details. So on subsequent second, third viewings, you might notice detailed Elvish embroidery on a cuff or something like that, or a significant symbol on the hilt of a sword. So it's absolutely a visual spectacle. So I certainly enjoyed that as a TV show. I enjoy the cast. It's very well cast, in my opinion, and the actors are top-notch. Really, really compelling acting and characters, and I look forward to seeing how their character arcs develop. As a Tolkien adaptation, I found it more difficult to get into because they're working with such limited material, but as we'll discuss, they make some significant departures even from that material. So that's a little hard to adjust to because you might think, well, if they have so little, certainly they should use every little detail they have and then just fill in the blanks where we aren't given something by Tolkien. But because there are significant changes, that was a little tough. But you asked me to talk about what I liked as a Tolkien adaptation. I liked that they are using the Elvish language Quenya. They're using the Dwarvish language as well. And side note, they have a diction and language coach who is just marvelous. She is amazing. Her work is so good that she's actually changing the way we Tolkien scholars pronounce names and words from his universe because she's really accurate. So I liked that. There are some scenes in which I felt like they really nailed the tone or the atmosphere or the feeling of Tolkien's work, and maybe we can talk about some specific scenes. Well, more generally speaking, first, I thought that the locations were one of the best aspects as a Tolkien adaptation. We get to spend time in Lindon, Eregion, Khazad-dûm, and I did feel that they captured those places from Tolkien's lore. So if your desire is to visit Middle-earth, then I do think that's one of the strong points of this show as a Tolkien adaptation.
Very good. Yeah, I know one of the things with a different show, which doesn't matter what it is, that I will listen to other commentary about it, and they note about costume and design. And so now I more so look out for that, so to speak. And so when I did the second viewing, I was especially able to enjoy just the atmosphere that they created. It's do very well in terms of a TV show overall and such. So, well then, okay, so you shared what you liked then. Likewise, what did you not like about the material in terms of a TV show, and then in terms of the Tolkien adaptation, which I assume the latter is going to be longer than the former?
Well, unfortunately, yes, there are several answers to that question. But this is also a matter of perspective and comparison, right? We're expecting so much of this show. There's been an enormous marketing campaign. There's so much hype for this show, and it's going to be the most expensive television show ever made. And then you bring to that also people's passionate love of Tolkien. There are very, very high expectations. On a first viewing, I was quite disappointed. I've watched it 3 times now, and I am liking it a little bit more on each viewing. So let's dig into some of the details of what was disappointing. The most disappointing aspect as a TV show is the dialogue. The dialogue strikes me as being very poorly written, quite cheesy, unrealistic, and that's surprising to me because the showrunners are brilliant, articulate, well-spoken people. Now, of course, they don't write every line of dialogue. Each episode is written by members of a writing team, and perhaps we'll see their skills in the overall arc of the story as it unfolds. We've only seen 2 hours out of 50, but the dialogue strikes me as being quite poor. The pacing of these first 2 episodes is a little odd.
Again, you've been listening to a special preview of a half-hour interview I did with Sørina Higgins. She had the chance to attend an advanced screening of The Rings of Power and even spoke with a couple of the actors and those involved in the writing of the show. You don't want to miss what she has to share about that, as well as the rest of her thoughts on what she didn't like about Rings as a TV show and then as a Tolkien adaptation. I hope you will also check out the other shows I've done, mostly on C.S. Lewis, but I have done others on Tolkien as well. Links are provided in the notes in the description to hear those podcast interviews. I'm William O'Flaherty, author of the misquotable C.S. Lewis and C.S. Lewis Goes to Hell, a companion and study guide to the Screwtape Letters. Be sure to visit essentialcslewis.com to keep up on all the material I cover about Lewis. Let me know what you think of this episode by leaving a comment. Also, be sure to help me promote it by liking and sharing it with others. Plus, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already.